is confident that noticeable progress will soon be visible in eradicating both load shedding and constraints within the freight and logistics industry. And in this regard, the Transnet and TPE will be briefing this morning or afternoon at 12 after this briefing on the progress that is made around addressing the challenges facing our ports. Cabinet is also pleased that despite remaining challenges, youth unemployment is gradually declining, a decrease of 1.9% from the previous chapter, and a 237,000 increase in the number of employed youth, rising to a total of 6 million youth in employment. It means in the third quarter alone, 237,000 youth gained employment. On investments, in the same trajectory of a recovering and growing economy, Cabinet welcomed the additional 5 billion rands investment by the Ford Motor Company on its new plug-in hybrid electric Ford Ranger that is earmarked for the export to Europe, New Zealand and Australia. The company currently employs 5,200 people in South Africa. Cabinet further welcomed the investment by Procter & Gamble in its new state-of-the-art production line of the Pampers Premium Care in Ekurhuleni, Gauteng. The P&G cumulative investment since 2018 totals approximately 900 million and currently employs over 4,000 direct and indirect people jobs throughout its value chain. Both the Ford Motor Company and the P&G project launches are testament of the valuable contribution of the President Ramaphosa's investment drive through the South African Investment Conference and a reaffirmation of South Africa as an investment destination of choice. South Africa's red meat access to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Cabinet welcomed the signing of the red meat agreement with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia during the Saudi Africa Investment Summit. This agreement marks a critical step in ensuring that South African red meat products gain access to an important market and further strengthens the contribution of the agricultural sector in both the economic growth and job creation. Cabinet congratulated Ministers Thoko Didiza and Ibrahim Patel for the work done to ensure the reopening of this market for the South African red meat products. On deliberate distortions of the Agri-BEE requirements for agricultural exports, Cabinet condemned deliberate distortions by some sections of the media of the Agri-BEE requirements for agricultural exports to stoke racial tensions and reminded the media that its freedom is equally comes with responsibility. Cabinet expressed its appreciation to the agricultural industry, in particular SA Wine and Agricultural Chamber of Business, commonly known as AGBIS, for rejecting attempts to plunge the country and the sector into racial tensions by publicly clarifying the distortions as soon as they were published. Your posture as an industry on this matter demonstrated that indeed you have embraced the spirit canvassed by the Springboks of Stronger Together. On tourism, Cabinet noted the partnership established between the Department of Tourism and Google as a game changer that will assist in promoting South Africa as a prime tourist destination. The partnership aims, amongst others, to facilitate the use of digital tools to enhance tourism expectations and sustainability, including a commitment that Google Maps will use technology to avoid crime hotspots and thus protect our tourists. On the fight against crime and corruption, the integrated crime fighting, Cabinet welcomed the deployment of 3,300 until the 28th of April 2024 to support the South African Police Service and other law enforcement agencies to deal with illegal mining in the country. This deployment affirms government's commitment to put an end to illegal mining and create conditions for inclusive growth and transformation of the economy. The Ministers of Justice, of the Justice, Crime Prevention and Security Cluster have provided progress with the work underway to fight against crime, in particular organized crime and illegal mining last week. And the Minister of Police has also last week provided an update on quarterly crime statistics. On the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council's National Dialogue, Cabinet welcomed the successful hosting of the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council's National Dialogue, which deliberated on progress in implementing the National Anti-Corruption Strategy and recommendations of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into allegations of state capture. The progress includes 8 out of 16 recommended pieces of legislative reforms to address specific recommendations of the State of Capture Commission that are now before Parliament. These bills cover areas such as public procurement, administrative reform, conduct of public servants, reform of intelligence services, money laundering, and electoral reform. Also, the Asset Forfeiture Unit has been granted freezing orders worth 14 billion rands for state capture-related cases and recouped 5.4 billion rands of the ill-gotten gains. In addition, the investigating directorate has taken 34 state capture and corruption cases to court involving 205 accused persons. On the fight against gender-based violence and femicide, Cabinet condemned in the strongest terms the stabbing of a female Cape Peninsula University of Technology student by her husband. Cabinet calls on society to work together with government to eliminate gender-based violence, whilst law enforcement agencies continue to bring perpetrators of such callous acts to justice. On the death of children due to malnutrition, Cabinet noted with concern the reported deaths of children due to malnutrition as reported by the Human Rights Commission. Cabinet wishes to remind members of the community about government support programs such as the Child Support Grant, which is aimed at assisting families to meet the basic nutritional needs of children. This is in addition to the Comprehensive Social Assistance Program, through which government provides healthy meals to vulnerable households through the School Nutrition Program and Community Nutrition and the Development Centers. On voter registration, Cabinet reiterated its call to all eligible voters to register to vote at their nearest voting station, including to update their details during the voter registration weekend of the 18th and 19th November 2023, and the IEC will provide an in-depth briefing in terms of the registration numbers that were achieved during this first voter registration weekend. To assist voters who need to collect IDs that they have applied for or to apply for temporary identification certificates, the has aligned its operating hours with those of the IEC during the voter registration weekend. Cabinet has reminded citizens that they can also use the online voter registration facility on register2vote.elections.org.za, which has been operating since February 2023 to register or update their details. The online voter registration continues even beyond the voter registration weekends. On infrastructure development, on energy, the minister in the presidency responsible for electricity has provided a comprehensive public briefing on the status and progress with ensuring electricity security yesterday. On water security, Cabinet is pleased with reports that the disputes that resulted in delays towards the implementation of the Mzimvubu Dam have been resolved and site establishment commenced in early November, whilst the consultations with traditional leaders on social issues continues. Cabinet was updated on the raising of the Clan William Dam wall to increase storage capacity to 344 cubic meters for the benefit of the people of West Coast District Municipality, Cedarburg Local Municipality, and Matsikama Local Municipality that is underway. Cabinet was briefed that the construction of the Tsanin Dam recommenced in June 2023 with the estimated completion date being April 2025. Cabinet was appraised that a joint team of the 3 metropolitan municipalities, that is Ekurhuleni, Johannesburg, and Tshwane, and the Rand Water continue to meet daily to address root causes of water challenges in those 3 metropolitan municipalities. At the center of Gauteng province water challenges is water losses caused by old municipal infrastructure and deficiencies in water leakage monitoring and efficient repairs. Excuse me. On SA Connect Phase 2, Cabinet received and considered an updated report on the implementation of the SA Connect Phase 2 project. SA Connect is a flagship program of government that seeks to bridge the digital divide by connecting households and government institutions and providing Wi-Fi access to communities across the country. On progress with Phase 2 of the project, Cabinet was pleased that 1,000 households were connected with broadband and that 1,000 community Wi-Fi hotspots are planned to be installed by December 2023. In addition, the project has rolled out infrastructure for internet connectivity that allows households to access internet at cheaper rates. For 249 rands per month, a subscribing household has unlimited access to robust internet with cheaper data costs as low as 5 rand for 1 gig per day. It is estimated that the project will also contribute to economic participation through the provisioning of 4,505 semi-skilled and 169 skilled employment opportunities and will support over 75 small and medium-sized companies. In addition, high-demand spectrum will be provided to more than 18,000 schools, 943 libraries, 5,731 health facilities, and 8,241 tribal authorities over the next months through the social obligations to the telecommunications companies. It is anticipated that the project will deliver connectivity to more than 5 million households through 32,000 community Wi-Fi hotspots across the country over the next 36 months. Finally, the price of data will fall. On broadcast digital migration, Cabinet noted the progress the country is making with the migration from analog to digital broadcasting. As of 23 July 2023, all 123 analog transmitters above the 694 MHz were switched off in the remaining 4 provinces of Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, Western Cape, and Gauteng. This will free up the spectrum needed. This has freed up the spectrum needed for mobile broadband and other information and communications technology-related needs. Cabinet was briefed that the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies has determined December 2024 as the final date for analog switch off, and that progress is on track to meet the set target date. On Municipal Cleaning and Greening Initiative, Cabinet encourages South Africans to join the program to keep our country clean and free from litter by participating in the Municipal Cleaning and Greening Initiative taking place across the country. The initiative, which has already created more than 37,000 work opportunities, is aimed at clearing the 7,251 illegal dumping hotspots in communities across the country. This involves the daily cleaning of streets, clearing illegal dumping sites, and cleaning coastal areas and the revitalization of parks. On capacity of the state, the improved national and provincial audit outcomes for the financial year 2022-2023, Cabinet was briefed by the Auditor General of South Africa on the outcomes of the 2022-2023 financial year national and provincial audit. The AGSA pointed out to encouraging trend of continuous improved performance, which indicates overall improvement in accountability, transparency, adequacy, and effectiveness of controls. The departments and institutions that have achieved unqualified audits with no findings, what is commonly known as clean audits, have increased from 94 during the 2018-2019 financial year to 147 during the 2022-2023 reporting year on a year-on-year improvement. The departments and institutions that have achieved unqualified audits with findings are 162, and this represents 39% of the audited institutions. The institutions and departments with disclaimed findings have decreased from 25 during 2018-2019 reporting period to 5, only 5, during the 2023 reporting period, and this represents only 1% of the audited institutions. And although the Auditor General reports an estimated 14 billion in financial losses, measures to address material irregularities also show an improvement. And although challenges still remain, the outcomes of the 2022-2023 national and provincial government audits dispel claims that state capacity is in total collapse, with independent and objective assessment by institutions such as the AGSA indicating a very strong and continuous improvement trajectory. So this notion that the capacity of the state is in total shambles is dispelled by facts. And no matter how wishful we can wish that state capacity is collapsing, we have been proven over and above by both the AGSA and State South Africa that we are rebuilding, we are resilient, we are stronger, and South Africa is rising. It is not collapsing. On international relations, state visit to Qatar last week, President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa concluded a state visit to Qatar at the invitation of His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, the Emir of the State of Qatar. The visit underscored 3 decades of diplomatic relations. The president was joined by a high-level business delegation and engaged the Qatari business community in various sectors with an aim of improving trade relations. President Ramaphosa and the Emir agreed to set up working teams that will look into increasing Qatar's investments into South Africa to match the depth of the diplomatic relations. On geopolitical matters, Cabinet reiterates the call made by African leaders for an end to the war in Gaza during the Africa-Saudi Summit in Riyadh, hosted by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The summit condemned the targeting of civilians and the violations of international law by the Israeli government. Cabinet continued to be concerned by the atrocities of the Israeli government against the people of Palestine, including the deliberate attacks on the United Nations school in Gaza and the massacre of hundreds of children who had sought refuge at the school, in addition to the continued attacks on hospital staff, patients, and hospital infrastructure. It is because of these continued atrocities that are being committed with impunity by the Israeli government with the support and protection of powerful countries that on the 17th of November 2023, South Africa, together with the Comoros, Djibouti, Bolivia, and Bangladesh, jointly referred the situation in Palestine and Israel to the International Criminal Court, while the Palestinian Authority did ask the ICC to investigate crimes under the court's jurisdiction in 2018. South Africa believes that current atrocities, particularly in Gaza, needs renewed attention with the full backing of state powers. Our ambassador in The Hague delivered the referral in person, which asked the ICC to investigate the commission of war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide with a view of holding those most responsible accountable. Given that much of the global community are witnessing the commission of these crimes in real time, including statements of genocidal intent by mainly Israeli leaders, we expect that warrants of arrest for these leaders, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, should be issued shortly. The ICC has been able to investigate the situation in Palestine since 2021, when the issue of territorial jurisdiction was settled. However, we have noted that the Office of the Prosecutor has continued to drag its feet despite the gravity of the situation. The current atrocities may not have occurred if these investigations took place as soon as the Palestinian authorities first made its referral. We expect that now that the state parties have also added their voices for an end to the impunity by Israel and the significant levels of evidence available, that international warrants of arrest will be issued by the time the Conference of Parties meet in mid-December in New York. Failure to do so will be indicative of a lack of will to act by the ICC and a strong signal to the total failure of the global system of good governance and justice and the need to establish a new system. More children have been killed over the last month than those killed per annum in all conflicts combined for the last 3 years. More UN staff members have been killed in Gaza since the founding of the United Nations. The numbers of journalists killed have been staggering. These are all people killed by the actions of the Israeli government, not to defend itself, but to events by the statements of its leaders to clear most of Gaza of Palestinians and occupy it. The world cannot simply stand by and watch. The global community need to rise to stop this genocide now. On cabinet decisions, on the African peer review mechanism, 20th anniversary celebrations, Cabinet considered and supported the request for South Africa to host the 20th anniversary celebrations of the APMR from the 23rd to the 30th of November 2023. South Africa supports the APRM mission to promote the African Union's shared values of democratic governance and inclusive development in the continent. The 20th anniversary celebrations will include the participation of current and former heads of state and government and the African Union Commission. On the CARA, or the Criminal Asset Recovery Account funds, Cabinet approved the use of monies in the Criminal Asset Recovery Account to fight against illegal mining and other organized crimes. The 2.1 billion rands is allocated to fight illicit mining and organized crime, which continues to be a threat to the South African economy. The money is allocated to the South African Police Service, South African National Defence Force, the Department of Home Affairs, the Border Management Agency, and GCIS. The SABC will use the fund to buy vehicles, helicopters, nyalas, and will deploy more than 4,000 officers for 18 months. Illegal mining and other organized crimes cost South Africa billions of rands each year, and it affects our position as an investment destination. On the Just Energy Transition Implementation Plan, Cabinet approved the Just Energy Transition Implementation Plan. The implementation plan will guide South Africa's transition to low-carbon economy through the scaling up of renewable energy sources. The JET IP, as is commonly known, sets out a number of interventions South Africa needs and investments required for the country to transition to a low-carbon and climate-resilient economy in line with the nationally determined contribution presented to the United Nations. Cabinet is of the view that the JET IP demonstrates South Africa's commitment to a just transition in line with the country's energy needs. The JET IP will be driven by a combination of reforms in the energy sector, including the Mpumalanga Just Transition, the new energy vehicles, which are the electric vehicles, and the green hydrogen, amongst others. The plan further responds to South Africa's commitments under the Paris Agreement and the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, as well as the NDP commitments. The JET IP will enable South Africa to gradually meet its carbon emissions reduction commitments, while at the same time it will ensure inclusive economic growth, energy security, and employment. On the draft National Public Transport Subsidy Policy, Cabinet approved the gazetting of the draft National Public Transport Subsidy Policy for public comments. The policy proposes that South Africa's public transport funding should move from subsidizing a particular mode of transport to a user subsidizing model. Government recognizes that the transport sector is at the heart of the country's development, with most households completely reliant on public transport for mobility. On the biannual medium-term strategic framework, or what we call the MTSF 2019-2024 performance progress reports, or what we call the program of action, Cabinet received and considered the MTSF biannual progress reports for the period 1st April 2023 to 30 September 2023. The reports form part of the consolidated government priorities towards the achievement of the national development goals, and the reports focused on the 7 priorities of government that were identified by the 6th administration, which are building a capable, ethical, and developmental state, education, skills, and health, consolidating social wage through reliable and quality basic service, special integration, human settlements, and local government, social cohesion, economic transformation and job creation, a better Africa and a better world. Cabinet welcomed areas of progress on the determined targets for the period under review. Cabinet also noted areas that required interventions to address delays in implementing programs which are negatively impacted by the tough economic environment and the electricity challenges. And the minister in the presidency responsible for planning, monitoring and evaluation will lead the cluster briefings of ministers to articulate on the program of action and the achievement thereto. On bills, the South African National Petroleum Company Bill, Cabinet approved the publication of the South African National Petroleum Company Bill for public comments. The bill gives effect to the Cabinet decision to merge Petro SA, South African Gas Development Company, iGas, and the Strategic Fuel Fund. The bill makes provisions for the establishment of a state-owned company that will ensure South Africa participates meaningfully in oil and gas development. It will also guarantee the country's security of energy supply to support economic development and growth. The South African National Petroleum Company will oversee strategic planning, coordination and governance of the country's petroleum resources, and this will contribute to the economic development and growth and job creation. On appointments, all appointments are subject to the verifications of qualifications and the relevant security clearances. Cabinet approved the reappointment of Dr. Molefi Mutoku as CEO of the Council for Mineral Technology, Mintech. The appointment of Mr. Siyabulela Koyo as CEO of Amatole Water. The reappointment of Ms. Poppy Khoza as Managing Director of the South African Civil Aviation Authority. Members of the board of the Phongolo Mzimkhulu Catchment Management Agency Board, Dr. Tava Kelly, who's the chair, Mr. Sibusiso Makhanya, Deputy Chairperson, Ms. Hlengiwe Ndlovu, Mr. Bekumuzi Gumbi, Dr. Lembi William Ngoma, Ms. Snenhlanhla Mngadi, Professor Pushmota Reddy, Mr. Dandla Myeni, and Ms. Nokuthula Khanyile. Members of the Val Orange Catchment Management Agency Board, who are Mr. Desmond Solomon Fransman as the chairperson, Mr. Kani Zwane as the deputy chairperson, Mr. Hubert Thompson, Ms. Nontutu Zelo Njeza, Mr. Nakana Lazarus Masoka, Ms. Pona Cheho, Liz Mutibi, Ms. Doris Liana Teresia Donju, Ms. Chakane Rachel Masheho, and Mr. Louis van Oudtshoorn. Upcoming events: 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children, which starts on the 25th of November to 10th of December. This year marks the 25th anniversary since South Africa initiated the 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children campaign. The launch will be held in Mpumalanga at the Sikazi Stadium at the city of Mbombela under the theme Accelerating Actions to End Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, Leaving No One Behind. The sub-theme, Safe Access for Women to Clean Water, a Basic Human Right, addresses barriers women face in safely accessing water and sanitation. South Africa and the Union of Comoros will co-host the 3rd AU, that is African Union Men's Conference on Positive Masculinity in Leadership to End Violence Against Women and Girls on the 27th to the 28th of November 2023 in Pretoria under the theme Consolidating Commitments Towards the African Union Convention on Ending Violence Against Women and Children. On messages of congratulations, Cabinet extends its congratulations and well wishes to Professor Dire Tladi, formerly of the University of Pretoria, if not formally as yet, he will be formally soon, on his election to the by the United Nations as a judge of the International Court of Justice. Professor Tladi is a highly respected scholar, a skilled diplomat, and is the first South African ever to be elected to the court in its 78-year history, the second judge from Southern African region, and the second youngest judge ever to be selected to the court. We'd like to congratulate him and wish him the best as he carries the flag of South Africa and Southern Africa with him. And we expect him to remain impartial, as all judges are required to be. The Auditor General of South Africa, for being appointed the external auditor of the UNESCO. This is a reaffirmation of the above average international standing of South Africa's institutions. Previously, the AGSA was an external auditor of the United Nations more than 10 years ago. And when we say the audit outcomes of 2022-2023 are showing an improvement, it's not because the AG is biased, it's because their system and methodologies can stand the test of time, and they are now awarded an external auditor status of UNESCO, a great standing and accolade. And we say to the AG herself, Ms. Tsakani Maluleke, congratulations to you and your team. We also wish to extend our congratulations to Mamelodi Sundowns for flying the flag high and making history by winning the inaugural African Football League. It's a pity South Africans did not become all fans of Mamelodi Sundowns on that day. This triumph is another example of the unifying power of sport, which continues to foster nation building and social cohesion. Again, Mamelodi Sundowns ladies for becoming the CAF Women's Champions League final by beating Sporting Club Casablanca, Kabuyelo. We must just become yellow. I think even the national team. I hope Safa did not hear me. The Proteas for demonstrating resilience and fighting spirit in their defeat against Australia in the Cricket World Cup semi-finals, and we congratulate Australia for winning the ICC 2023 World Cup. Legendary actor and playwright Dr. John Kani, who has been awarded an honorary officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, OBE, in recognition for his services to drama. And we should no longer call him just Dr. John Kani. Say Dr. John Kani. The Higher Education, Science and Innovation Minister, Dr. Blaise Ndimande, who has been awarded an honorary professorship by the Beijing Jiantong University in China. This is in recognition of his contributions to education, and it is a symbol of strengthening ties between South Africa and China. And may I take this opportunity to clarify, he's not going to be called Professor Nzimande. It's an honorary professorship. He remains Dr. Nzimande. Dr. Kohi Naidu, who was awarded the prestigious Outstanding Female Scientist Prize, presented by the European and Developing Countries Clinical Trials Partnership, a research program of the European Union. South Africa's Investment SA, a branch of the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition that won a UN Investment Promotion Award at the 8th World Investment Forum for promoting and facilitating large energy project that includes foreign investment for the construction of the country's largest renewable energy project, expected to provide clean energy to 200,000 households. And to the DTIC for ensuring that South Africa was ranked in the first place in the GBS World Competitiveness Index for its support for call centers in the category of Global Customer Lifecycle Management, and ranked second in the Global Customer Service and Support Services category. To the winners of the Small, Medium Enterprises and Cooperatives Awards that were awarded on Friday, the 17th of November 2023. We'd like to express our condolences on behalf of Cabinet to the family and friends of the SA music icon Mark Ransedi, who was part of the musical duo Mark Alex, which he co-founded with his brother Alex Ransedi. To the family and friends of legendary former sports journalist and news editor Sello Rabutata, he is known for his love of football and formed part of the team that helped coin the name Bafana Bafana for South Africa's national soccer team. And Bafana Bafana owe him and his memory to win the next matches. To the much-loved radio personality Ivan Sihlope, who anchored and produced sports shows on SABC's Ukhozi FM. To a non-South African, but a member of the Gift of the Givers in the Gaza office, Gaza head office, Ahmed Abbasi, who was killed in the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict. May their soul rest in peace. Thank you. And I'm being accused of being a Mamelodi Sundowns fan. No, we just have to acknowledge excellence. Kabuyelo.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the comprehensive feedback on both the two meetings of the Cabinet. May we allow the questions, but first we'll start in the House and then we'll go to the online. The normal routine, you press on the knob there, it will show a red, then you introduce yourself and the media house and straight to the question. Let me start on my right and then I'll come to the left.
Thank you very much, Minister. It's Samke Lemasero from the SABC. Just two questions. The government's response to the Harvard research that says that care deployment of the governing party is what is crumbling and killing South Africa. Just your response to that particular research paper done by Harvard University. And then secondly, on matters pertaining to President Ramaphosa, particularly on Israel, what is government's final position on the Israeli embassy? Are you closing down the Israeli embassy in South Africa, and are you sending the Israeli ambassador home? Just those two questions. Thank you, Minister. And lastly, on the fixing of the rand, started in charters, came out and said they participated in the fixing of the rand. Government's response to financial institutions, and in particular banks, in their role in fixing of the rand. And what has happened to ABSA and the role that they played during the tenure of Myra Ramos when they were also involved in fixing of the rand? Thank you.
Thank you, Samkelo. On my left.
Thank you very much. It's Zianda Ngogo from Newsroom Africa. Following on from my colleague's question, just to check in on what's the status of the diplomats that were recalled from Tel Aviv. Are they back? Was there discussion by the cabinet on when they're likely to go back to Israel? Because we were told that they've just been recalled for consultation. And just to also again ask, have you engaged with the ambassador of Israel to South Africa, and what is the official position of cabinet, seeing that your statement now has reflected a condemnation of what's taking place in Gaza? And then just a question of clarity, has the finance minister, beg your pardon, returned to his duties, seeing that we had an acting finance minister last week? And regarding our issues of...
Zianda?
Sorry?
Slow down.
Oh, okay. So my last question was about the help of our finance minister. Has he returned to work? I understand that he's due to go sometime this week, so back. And then my last question is about parastatals, and this would fit into that section on investments. Was there a report perhaps from the Public Enterprises Minister, Pravin Gordhan, on the status of the executives that need to be replaced both at Transnet and Eskom? And has Cabinet expressed any concern at how long it's taken to replace Andre de Ruyter since his departure, given our continued electricity woes? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. With your kind permission, I think we can go to the online questions, as some of them you want to give responses. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's start. Zianda, you asked three questions, or four, because I thought there was is it three questions? I have your question on the recalled diplomats, the Health of Finance Minister, and the parastatals. What's the other question?
There's a follow-up on something on the status of what the final decision on this embassy, similar to something you said.
Okay. Okay, let's start on that note, or let's start on the easier one. We honestly. So can we leave it there? Who says he was not at work? When you have an acting person, doesn't mean you are not available to work. You remain available for consultations with the minister who is acting. So, the treasurer will communicate the decisions of Minister Godongwane, and let's leave it there. It's not a matter of cabinet discussion. On the parastatals, equally, there was no report from the Minister of Public Enterprises, but the process of filling the vacancies is underway. We're quite aware and happy with the progress towards those. In terms of the engagement, let's start with the recalled diplomats have been recalled, and we said this consultation will determine the period. So don't ask us when, we'll tell you when they go back. You know, don't call us, we'll call you, kind of arrangement. We are on that mode. And whether we have engaged with the ambassador of Israel, yes, the DECO has engaged with the ambassador of Israel when they were demarching him. And on closing down the embassy of Israel, there is no decision to close down the embassy of Israel from cabinet. We have gone to the ICC as part of the state parties who have referred the matters there. On the excuse me, on the Standard and Charter confessing to collusion, it's a very sad state. We have maintained over the period that the performance of the rand and sometimes the performance of the economy has been manipulated by private sector who has no interest in the development of this country, who continue to engineer and do machination to make sure that the government collapses. That's why they also self-feed in the narrative that there's a collapsing state, there's a collapsing economy, because that's what they wish for and their actions do that. But despite those efforts, the South African economy continues to be resilient. And in terms of the work that is being done, the Competition Commission, Standard and Charter has agreed to testify against the other banks. So the follow-up question that you've said, to say what is the role of ABSA and other banks, it's not only one bank, ABSA, there are other banks. At least now we're starting to have Standard and Charter going to form part of the witnesses in the prosecution so that we can have recourse. People cannot be left untouched because they wanted to collapse this country. There must be consequences, and there will be consequences. On the Harvard research, I think, so how do I say it without it was initiated by this government through the national, in partnership with the National Treasury. But research on its own is not absolute. It considers a period. It considers a sample. And I can say this because I'm stuck with research and sample, and my professors telling me that the sample is not wide enough, is therefore not reliable. And therefore, and that's why on our part we are not bothered about the reports in terms of things that they say are happening, which are not necessarily happening. On things that we need to strengthen, we are strengthening. In terms of the deployment policy, the ANC will deal with the deployment policy, but any ruling or governing party makes sure that they put their people who agree and understand their own policies to execute the mandate of that party. How it's done is what matters, and whether the people deployed have the capacity is what matters. And that part of the question that I've just indicated, that the people deployed, whether they've got the capacity to execute at the level and the scale and the sector deployed to, that is the issue the ANC will have to deal with. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. May I then, it seems there are no follow-up questions, but I see there are follow-up questions in the House. Before I go the online questions, let me take the follow-up questions from the House. The same routine. Let me take the follow-up questions from the House. The same routine. Volume. Okay. Closer to the mic, yeah.
And you can't put both on.
Consequences, but what are those consequences? When you say that they're going to testify, would that be for a court of law or before the competition tribunal? And if it is not with reference that company to be taken to a court of law, the charges are going to be there. Just clarity on that. And then maybe the second one on the resignation of the DG of the SSA. Are there any plans to have that vacancy maybe filled in an acting capacity while the determination is made for a permanent person?
Thank you, Stambile. Second bite.
Minister, what was the basis of the fallout between yourself and the Director General of State Security? Was it a personality clash? What was the main basis of the fallout? Because essentially she resigned due to a fallout the two of you were having, and ultimately her not being able to get hold of the Commander-in-Chief of the President. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we go to the online questions? Or maybe the Minister wants to deal with this ones that we're asking the House first. Yeah.
Let's deal with this one first, so that we don't confuse issues as we go to him. I'm trying to, you always ask a friend. I'm trying to get the response that the friend has sent me. Can get into your thinking, Samkelo. As part of the settlement, I'm trying to, on the question around Standard and Charter, I'm trying to, you always ask a friend. I'm trying to get the response that the friend has sent me, because I think I can get into your thinking, Samkelo. As part of the settlement agreement between the Competition Commission and Standard Charter, Standard Charter will provide evidence against implicated banks. That's when we'll deal with the consequences. So we can't preempt what those consequences will be, but based on the evidence that will be provided, then the necessary consequences will be meted. And whether the DG will be filled by an acting capacity is above my pay grade. The DG of SSA is hired by the President. On the fallout, there was no fallout. And I'm going to give you some clarity, and it's not part of the cabinet discussion, but to make sure that you don't have. The DG had resigned before I joined SSA, before I was appointed minister in the presidency responsible for SSA. President declined that resignation. On the 7th of March, I was appointed minister in the presidency, also responsible for state security. Right? Because I'm minister in the presidency, but I'm also responsible. I'm not responsible, I'm amongst others. On the 7th of March. On the 17th of April, the DG resigns. The president accepts the resignations of the DG. So what fallout will it be from the 7th to the 17th that will necessitate a DG and a minister having a fallout? The DG resigns, the president accepts the resignation. But the president says, DG, can we agree that you cannot leave immediately? You will leave you will allow us to have stability and settling in, maybe including the minister settling in, and will agree on a date of exit. And the president and the DG have agreed that the DG exits on the 30th of November 2023. But as South Africans, I always say we are a very noisy crowd. So we want to express opinions and views, even on things that we do not have facts about. And we also want to create a notion of villains and victims. And we love the victims. And I've learned that as a leader, you must accept to be understood, misunderstood, misquoted, and intentionally being distorted. And I've accepted that, so this matter is not an issue. And if you want evidence, I can show you pictures of the DG and me buying each other chocolates and buying each other tea. We even share bottles of water because we both drink sparkling water. So if she sits and realizes I do not have sparkling water, she says, Minister, I only have this one. So I don't know about this fallout. The relationship has been professional throughout. She's an amazing woman, and she's a patriot. So there have not been a fallout between me and her. Like in any other course of work, the people hold different opinions. I don't only have one DG. I've got 5 DGs that report to me. So I run 5 departments. Why would I have a fallout with one DG and not the other? And it's not only, I run very critical departments in this government. And that's why maybe I don't sleep and my voice sounds crappy. So why would I choose one? I've worked since I became minister with 8 DGs. I've never had a fallout with any DG. But what I'm pleased with, no matter the distortions that are in the public space, the president knows the facts of the matters, and that's why I'm comfortable in my skin. So I thought we must settle that so that we go to the important questions without dealing with squabbles. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for the clarity that you provided. We can then go straight to the online questions. Tagalani?
Thank you, Mr. B. We had 10 questions from online, but 8 of which they were the repetition of what has been asked in-house. And we are only left with 2 from Christian Duplessis, who is representing Network 24. And the first question is, should South Africa's referral to the ICC be seen as a vote of confidence in the ICC after South Africa earlier threatened to withdraw after the ICC issued a warrant of arrest for President Putin? And does the government support the warrant of arrest by the ICC of Putin for war crimes in Ukraine, and why or why not? And Joe Suleiman from Rhodium today is asking if the president will honor Mamelodi Sundowns players. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Tagalani. On that note, Minister, the Kabuyelo one and the others, you might take them, Minister, and perhaps maybe close the briefing.
You know, since I mentioned the Kabuyelo, you know, the messages that have come on my inbox to say I'm a closet Sundowns fan, and I'm not. And now you're asking if the president will honor Mamelodi Sundowns. I think we need to ask the PSL and SAFA what is the honor they're planning for Mamelodi Sundowns. Otherwise, we can always talk to President Khumbudzo Ntshavheni and find out what are the plans that we must support for that. But I think the first move must go to the Premier Soccer League and to SAFA on saying, what do you do to recognize the continuous representation of football at international stages by the Mamelodi Sundowns family, because it's not only the male team, it's also the ladies team. And we need to honor them, but I don't know if the honor must come from the president. If it comes from the president, I'm sure I'm going to be accused of unduly influencing him to do the Kabuyelo parade, but I'm sure the city of Tshwane must do a Kabuyelo parade, and all of us who find ourselves resident in Tshwane and adjacent metros should come through and honor these magnificent heroes and heroines of our football fraternity. On the ICC referral, whether it's a vote of confidence to the ICC, we must, and maybe let me start on the question of the warrant of arrest of President Putin. That's why South Africa, we persuaded and agreed with President Putin that he will not attend the BRICS meeting physically, because we respected the ICC and its statutes and the warrant of arrest that has been issued against him. However, the conduct of the ICC as it relates to the conflict and the wars in the atrocities and the genocide that is being committed against the Palestinians does not make them worth the paper they are written in. Where we made a referral, we're giving them a last opportunity to prove themselves to this country and the rest of the world that they're an objective organization. If you recall, the human rights, the international, Amnesty International once came out, I think it was earlier this year, if not late last year, to say the ICC does not play an objective role and does not play a neutral role, is biased. So it is high time that they come and prove themselves. That's why in our statement we say we are expecting that the warrants of arrest for those on both sides of the aisle that have committed atrocities against women and children, that have violated human rights, will be issued before the conference of parties in December in New York. And if they do not do that, because it took them only a month to issue a warrant of arrest against President Putin, this has been years being reported to them. The atrocities against Palestinians have been reported to the ICC. They've went and argued issues of they do not have territorial jurisdiction, and it was proven they have territorial jurisdiction, but the prosecutor did not move. If by that time they do not move and make meaningful measures to indicate that they are on the side of people and justice and the protection of children and women and civilians, we will then know, not only South Africa, but as a global community, that we need a new system of protecting the weak, the poor, and the vulnerable, because the ICC will not be such an institution. Thank you. Have a lovely week ahead. So Brabu William is correcting my vendor and says I didn't say P properly. So it's in the vendor and me. It's President P. Motsepe.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you for all the news that you gave us. Colleagues, this brings us to the end of this briefing. The statement will be shared with you soon. Any other queries that colleagues have, there is my colleague C. Pombele, and you can just approach him. This then brings us to the end of this briefing, and it is adjourned. Thank you very much.
We don't let anything get under our skin. We always feeling like number one. Always feeling like number ones with the new number one skin hygiene pad. Its amazing germ lock tech keeps wetness and germs locked deep inside. Nothing gets under our skin, period. Always.